Hey, welcome to Framework and our ongoing coverage of John Carpenter in Framework's John Carpenter's The Podcast. And we are now finishing it out here. We are up to the 16th film of John Carpenter. And that film, of course, is Vampires from 1998. I am one of the hosts of Framework, John. And with me, as always, is the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today, Al?
I've been better. Not just because Carpenter's been better than this. He's been worse as well, and worse and very recently. But no, it's just a tough times in my house right now. My stepson's got COVID. He's isolating, and I feel my throat sort of scratching up and closing up as we speak. So
alarming times.
If I sound funny, yeah. And that also explains why I'm doing this podcast topless and chained to the roll bar on a Jeep Cherokee.
Ah, yes. And with us as always is the well, I don't know. Are you you're basically
I'm infected is what the idea. Gotcha. haven't turned yet. Haven't the test has not popped positive yet.
Not bitten on the thigh by Valak, I hope.
No. Bitten on the arm by a rabid prostitute that I had stripped naked and this is a weird movie, man. We gotta
yeah. Well, you shouldn't have trusted that prostitute, Al. That's the lesson.
But did he? Nobody trusted that prostitute.
Okay. With us as always. Are you? I don't know. Are you like the third Beatle at this point, Chris? I guess the George Harrison.
I guess I'm the Stuart Sutcliffe of this podcast, I would say.
I was going to say you're the Spinderella to our Salt and Pepper.
Oh, that's better. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take
and
that.
That's the most accurate, I feel. Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Backing us up when we falter and holding the whole thing together.
Yes. Welcome back to the show, Chris Prentice. This is kind of just frankly, this movie just it had you written all over it, man. We I kind of thought we wanted your thoughts on this one, John Carpenter's Vampires.
Oh yes, I'm glad to be back for this one. It might be a tough one to find a lot of people who enjoy this one, but I think of this kind of middling sort of last gasp for Carpenter, I think this is actually the best of that period.
I would have to agree with that, man. I think this is
damning praise, though.
Let's say of the last 5 movies, the obvious best, I think. That's
yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only one that comes close is In the Mouth of Madness, and I think this one's better.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I don't agree with that, but after In the Mouth of Madness, yeah, this it's clearly, we're all saying like we know if the Ward's any good or not.
Well, that's true. I never saw that, so you guys can tell me if that's good.
That'll be a hell of a twist ending if it turns out that every single person that's seen the Ward is wrong. And
yeah, it's really something. It's kind of between this and The Thing when you get right down to it. Yeah. No, it's but Vampires is I think, I don't know, the last good film is kind of the rap it's had for a little while. It's right at the end, in a way. So, this is in B movie mode. Carpenter, This is not him trying to. He's not trying to ace this one so much as just bring it in for a landing, and I think he soundly does that. That's kind of my take on this film. Yeah,
it's a rocky landing, unfortunately. Like what I've heard about it is that this is one of upteen Carpenter movies where the budget was slashed like after production began.
Seemed to be most of the 90s. Yeah,
what a way to why do that to anybody? Like why? Mm-hmm. Why it just seems like shoot yourself in the foot. But why does it continually happen to this guy? I mean, I don't get it. But you can almost feel the movie, like, even if that were not true, the movie still kind of feels that way because it feels like it starts off being one size of a movie and then rapidly downsizes half an hour in to be something smaller and not as interesting, I feel.
It definitely, his team gets wiped out way too soon. They needed to leave a couple of those guys alive just so you could have another bigger vampire battle towards the end. I mean, you can't just throw Kerry Tagawa in this for 3 minutes. I mean, that makes me very upset that they don't utilize him way better. I mean, I do love the the actual scene of Valak killing off the team. I think there's some great practical gore in that scene, but it's too early, and yeah, they needed to leave at least a couple of those guys around just to be cannon fodder later in the movie.
Why do that? I mean, budget makes sense.
Yes,
because it's the only reason to do that. Yeah,
I feel I'm on record as saying that it's never too early to bisect Mark Boone Jr. in your film, but in this case, it feels like we could have used somebody else. Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's almost
it was so good.
But yeah, so the opening of this movie where James Woods and his team of sort of like vampire hunters for hire, I guess, although they're only ever hired by the Catholic Church.
Yeah, well, they're mercenaries. They're on a pretty consistent plan, it seems.
On retainer with the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So when they attack the nest of vampires and kill them, and then they have their celebratory party in a roadside motel that gets attacked and massacred. That stuff's, we've kind of knocked Carpenter's action chops a fair bit over the last several movies, but that stuff's actually pretty well shot. And
he has good action, man. This is some of the best action in Carpenter.
It's up there with They Live. I mean, there's
it is like it's creative. It makes sense.
The slaughter,
the geography of it all.
The sequence where Woods is on top of the vampire later on, shooting the one, getting dragged. That's pretty cool. There's some really good action in this. There's just maybe not quite as much as I would have liked. But yeah, I mean, really the high point of the action is that slaughter, and that just comes so early that
it's the first act.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This movie is just off to the races immediately. It kind of front loads a lot of the best stuff out. Honestly, the first act of this is kind of just lights out awesome, and then it struggles to live up to that for the rest of the film in a lot of ways. That opening in the nest is great. It's got this awesome Southwest style John Carpenter theme. Really fun, really good, really pronounced, and makes a show of itself. Got a lot of orange filters, because we're in the 90s and we're kind of doing From Dusk Till Dawn stuff here.
And just the whole method of killing vampires where he's got this harpoon gun that's connected to a winch on the Jeep outside. So they harpoon a vampire and drag them slowly out into the sunlight. It's stupidly impractical.
But it looks good.
Yeah, it's unique. It's got personality. I love it.
It's super fun. The way the vampires explode might be the best of any exploding vampires. Honestly, this is a vampire igniting in the sunlight for the ages. It seems very practical, and it's just like they have Roman candles in their sleeves, and they all go off at once. It looks awesome.
Yeah. To the point where there's an action beat where James Woods has to roll off of one as it's being dragged into the light to avoid being burnt up himself.
Great.
That's cool.
Great.
Oh, you're awesome.
Right. The immolation effects of the vampire is probably the only thing this movie has on Blade. Which strikes me as also Vampire is to a much larger degree has the same issue Blade has, which awesome opening slaughter sequence of vampires. The hero just going into a vampire nest and kicking ass, and then struggling to kind of all right, so how do we do a movie after that to follow that up? We have to back to one, everybody. How do we do that?
It's worth mentioning Blade, actually, because this film, John Carpenter's Vampires, had the bad luck to come out about 5 weeks after Blade did in 1998. And, vampires, there's a lot of vampire action movies. I don't think there's any quite as good as the first Blade. That's sort of a high watermark for these in general. This one has some good stuff to offer, but it is unfortunate it has to follow that film.
Yeah.
Well, also the Padre, the actor's named Tim Guinea. He's also in Blade.
Nothing else ever. He's just in Blade and Vampires.
Well, he's in Blade, Vampires, and a very good. And I'm not just saying this because it's me saying it. A very good Dolph Lundgren movie called Men of War, where he plays there's a whole squad of mercenaries, and that actor is one of the mercenaries. It's a very good movie, co-written by John Sayles.
Well, hey, good for him. I mean, you know what? He's good in this movie.
Yeah, I like
no, he's not. No, you guys are so wrong. I want to talk about Tim Guinea. There's a reason he's never been anything else. He is fucking awful in this movie, and I think he's the single biggest reason why the second half struggles.
I'm not saying he's
that
great.
character sucks. And
he has an arc.
Sucks as that character. He doesn't convince as a bookworm. And just when you're getting blown off the screen by Daniel Baldwin, it's just not flattering.
Oh, he's not getting blown off the screen by Daniel Baldwin.
He's getting blown off the screen by James Woods. I mean,
Well, like they're all getting blown off the screen by James Woods in this. I mean,
I disagree, man. I think Baldwin's the best part of this movie.
Oh,
what?
No.
What? Oh, no.
In large part because the Montoya character, hysterical, he was clearly cast in the Danny Trejo role, and they didn't change the name or anything. But that character just has a better stuff to do in the second half, more interesting dynamic, a better character. I mean, not that Cheryl Lee's any great shakes as a character, but there's more interesting stuff for him to bounce off of there than this fucking nothing of a priest. God, this guy sucks. I can't believe you guys are defending him.
I like the back and forth between Woods and the Padre. I like their
I like where he sexually harasses him. All that it's great. Yeah.
I'll buy you a beer and get you later. Come on, Padre.
There is no back and forth. It's just James Woods slapping around this wet pillow.
Come on, Padre. Don't you have some wood?
Yeah. Some teak, mahogany. Oh, that's good shit, man. That's what you watch this movie for, is to see James Woods assault this guy, basically. I mean, that's most of the second act.
That's not what I signed up for, more of that hotel massacre shit.
Well, this is the problem, right? I mean, it starts so strong. It starts so cool. And because after that big, awesome nest scene, there's the hotel massacre, which is just fantastic stuff. And I mean, Chris, you're right. I'm introduced to these characters. I want more of these guys throughout the movie.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll take the hotel massacre at the same point. Just leave 7 of them alive.
Leave a couple.
7 is a lot, but 2 more.
Yeah,
Mark Boone Jr., the older priest, maybe.
No. Mark Boone Jr., I think he should have been killed because that's a great death. That's a great death right there. So keep that.
I mean, you could do that to anybody, but Mark Boone Jr. does really have the body type for that effect to really, really work. You're right.
Pound for pound, you get more for that effect.
I think even as much as I love the exploding vampires, I think the Boone Jr. death is my favorite in the whole movie. I just think that's a great effect right there. And it's thank God this movie was made when it was, because if it was 6 or 7 years later, it would just be some awful computer effect of him being split like that, and it would look like crap. But I'm fine with him going.
Yeah, that's an example of how you often hear of pretentious twits going on about how an actors and their face is your best special effect in your arsenal. And that really is, it's putting possibly our girthiest actor to the best effect possible.
Yeah.
So I guess we do have to lose him there. But yeah, there's one or two more. I mean, make the Cheryl Lee character one of them that got bitten and is slowly turning and understands.
You lose all the open contempt you get for her then, which seems to be a very important part of this film.
Yeah, and I guess then Montoya is doing all that in the back half of the movie anyway after he gets.
Well, how does this crew of vampire hunters not have the tough chick Vasquez from Aliens type person? They needed to have one of them. That's for sure needed to be done.
Cheryl Lee should have been one of them. Yeah, you're right.
The goddamn movie just needs more vampire hunters. They are so well drawn and exciting the instant we meet them,
Yes.
The sort of they're not unlike our beloved Sons of Anarchy, really, and not just because of Mark Boone Jr. They are a mercenary unit that operates killing vampires in the Southwest at the behest of the Catholic Church. I mean, sign me the fuck up for that movie. That's fantastic. And I want to see more of them and how they work and how they move through the world. And, like the stuff we do see in those first 20 minutes is great. Yeah, paying for the local law basically to look the other way while they take over this motel so they can hunt vampires locally. That's great shit. And then as soon as
I thought the implication was that the law brought them in.
I assume the Catholic Church brought them in, and the law is cool with it because vampires.
Sure.
Well, who owns the motel? Who's working at the motel?
Well, no one at the end of it.
They have this. There's but it's we never see anybody, and they blow the whole thing up. It's who was there? Somebody had to be working the front desk.
Maybe not in that case, man. I mean, they pretty much had the hotel on that night. They might have said,
maybe
they rented it out.
Get on home.
Okay.
Or they were just killed. Or they were just killed by Valak, like everyone else there.
Yeah, possible.
I mean, I guess my headcanon is that the owner and operator of that hotel was one of the first goons that Valak had turned that led to them being brought in. And that's why the local police directed them there for their after hours soiree.
this is what is so good about the first chunk of this movie is that it does present actual exciting, interesting world building. Like this is some great world building. Frankly, you could set an entire franchise in the world of the Catholic Church bankrolling vampire hunters. Like that's fantastic, and this is how they are. You know, they're not particularly. They seem a bit secular, as a matter of fact, but they're still working for the church. You know, all that stuff. That's great. I want to see all about these guys. I want to know about these guys. I want actors from Sons of Anarchy to play many of them. You know, I think I had assumed there were more in here. I don't know. Put some in. Throw Kenny Johnson in here too. Why not? You know, from the Shield, guys like that. You know,
oh sure. You could drop Kim Coates and Tommy Flanagan in here with no trouble, or Ron Perlman for that matter.
All of them.
If you can afford, if you downgrade one more Baldwin to Steven, maybe you can afford Ron Perlman.
Sure. You and your Daniel Baldwin. We'll get to Daniel Baldwin, but yeah, like this is the movie. This is where the movie is like fire, and I'm just like, yes, more of the. This is excellent B movie nonsense. This is a lot of fun. It's the kind of movie James Woods starring in seems appropriate, and then when you lose them, it becomes just sort of a lesser version of itself, you know. And once we massacre all these characters, we're kind of just down to fairly, familiar turf, including Tim Guinea's Padre character. It's a pretty standard arc.
Once we lose them, it becomes more, like you said, with all of them, it's a context in which James Woods as a star of the movie makes sense. Without all of them, it becomes a pretty pure James Woods vehicle, which is something I am much less interested in. Turns out,
look. I know he is a total loon, but as an acting force of nature, I think he's right up there with the greats of this era. So I even though I wish the team had stuck around longer and it had remained a little bit more of an ensemble movie, I'm still fine with it. Just seeing James Woods chew up the scenery, it still works for me just on that level.
Well, he just doesn't play characters like this usually. Like he's played protagonists. No. Usually, the most anti-heroes is sort of the most you get from Woods. I guess every now and then I get Cop. He's I guess technically a good guy, but for the most part, like he doesn't get to play the Schwarzenegger role, and he does in this,
Well, but is this not the most? Is this not an anti-hero? I mean,
well, he can't not do that. I mean, he has to be a monstrous asshole, otherwise it doesn't make any sense, Like, that sort of seems. This is like a Nicolas Cage action movie hero from the 90s. This is a real. This is basically the Con Air type guy, except the Woods extra wrinkle is that he's just a real piece of shit who likes to beat women up. Like that's like what Woods these brings to it extra.
For the most part, these are the type of heroes, quote unquote, that Carpenter likes. I mean, this is kind of the Snake Plissken of vampire hunters. He likes these kind of the asshole heroes that nobody. They're not exactly wearing the white hat and just being all around decent people. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like the movies. I like movies where the heroes are mean people. I enjoy that. So on that level, it works.
Unrelenting there.
I like that McCready and Childs are not cuddly, friendly protagonists, and at worst, me and They Live and Snake Plissken too. I don't know. Maybe it's just I have a different relationship to James Woods than you guys. Like it's not even about his politics or like trying to, whatever. I deserve 0 points for not approving of James Woods' Twitter habits. I don't like who gives a shit about that.
I don't care about
I've just never seen anything. I've never seen him in anything where he blew me away. Like I remember him being pretty good in Casino.
Oh man, he's great in Casino.
I think he's wonderful on screen. I think he's an exceptional actor. And of all the canceled assholes, I don't know. He's not even really a cancel. He's just like a lunatic, right?
Yeah. I mean, come on, the unscrupulous trainer in Any Given Sunday. Oh, he's amazing. Yeah. I mean,
I've never seen that one. That's why I missed the Woods' greatest hits.
He's incredible in Salvador, a war photographer in El Salvador. Well, that's a good one.
Well, hold on. Like maybe the weirdest movie ever made, Videodrome. I mean, probably.
Okay, I haven't seen Videodrome in years.
Oh my gosh!
It's been decades from
Woods is fun. Woods is very good on screen, and yes, he plays assholes like almost exclusively, even when he's the hero. He's a giant prick about it, and that's kind of the fun. I mean, I think he's more of a giant prick in this than McCready or Snake. Even he is kind of just loathsome, leathery lizard asshole person, and the movie does not really like apologize for that or punish him in any way for that. It's just sort of like, that's who he is. And it feels, I almost want to say subversive, which, although really
the happy ending is that
tropes,
he turns the Padre into more of an asshole like him, right? Like it's not even, it goes beyond not reprimanding him for it.
No, definitely not. I mean, you need an asshole to fight vampires for the Catholic Church, apparently.
Yeah.
It would be where this film appears to come down.
Yeah, you need a real piece of shit if you want to protect your Estrada Chocolata.
What a line. Yeah, like all that stuff. I mean, who else could do that? Who else could do that whole scene?
Look, I want to see the stage version of this where it's like True West and Woods and Danny Baldwin are trading off roles each time. Every time I load up John Carpenter's vampires, it's randomized which one is going to play the lead and which one's playing Montoya.
It's fantastic. Danny Baldwin, look, is the problem? The problem for me might just be that this is just like 60% of what an Alec Baldwin performance would be, and that might be.
Well, that by definition is a Daniel Baldwin performance.
Yeah, like more so than a William or
that.
Or
I mean,
Steven.
that's what it says on his contract that his agent gives you is that you.
Yeah,
I am contracting to deliver 60% of an Alex Baldwin performance.
60% of the performance for 30% of the pay.
Right. That's exactly the deal.
Yeah.
He's more like his brother than his other brothers, though. Like
absolutely, he looks like him.
Yeah, he looks like him, except a little fatter. He sounds like him. Not quite as good of an actor. He's exactly 60% Baldwin, except in the weight department. Then that he's probably like 130% Baldwin.
Well, it depends on the era of Baldwin.
Yeah, right.
Of Alec we're talking about.
Even
in the 90s,
Alec
yes,
holds it better, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Wears it a lot better, yeah.
I actually, I don't think Danny Baldwin's actually like that bad of an actor. I think he's pretty decent on Homicide around this time, and pretty decent in this movie. And I also think, this is the other thing that I had read was that they and I don't know how much I believed it, but it's on IMDb trivia or something that they wanted Alec Baldwin to play this role and settled for Danny Baldwin.
Has he ever played a role that they didn't want Alec Baldwin to play, though?
I think it
seems like you can just put on IMDb with no research because, of course, it's true.
The little piece of IMDb trivia that I saw was that, Alec was offered and he was a big fan of Carpenter, but couldn't do it, and that he suggested Daniel, which I mean, that's, I don't know.
But here's my hot take, though. I think this movie is worse with Alec Baldwin in it than with Danny.
No, surely not.
Because then,
surely not.
Well, look, I already think that the Montoya stuff is a more interesting character with more interesting material than the Jack Crow material. Mm-hmm. And if you have an Alec Baldwin who was actually on James Woods' level as an actor, then I think that imbalance is really off, and the main character becomes the less the worst part of the movie, or not the worst part, but the lesser part of the movie in a way that unbalances it in a bad way.
Well, I think if Alec Baldwin plays Montoya, there's probably more and better scenes with Montoya.
Yeah, I think that it's not. It's less Montoya as a sidekick, and it's more of a buddy movie. Really, it's a little more.
That sounds more. You're starting to make it sound better to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it would be better. Yeah, it would have been better.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
But no, you're right. He has the more active thing. He has a real arc that Jack Crow actually doesn't. You think he's going to, because Valak knows his name. He doesn't. He's just kind of like he's the guy. Whereas, Montoya has the entire narrative, basically, like character or narrative of the film falls to him and Cheryl Lee as prostitute.
Where Daniel is really unconvincing is when they're in the motel room and Cheryl Lee is going to go change in the bathroom, and Daniel's like, "Oh, you can't go in there. You can't close the door." And they're like, "Oh, well, no, I'm not going to keep this door open." And Daniel blows, "All right, well, you can keep the door open a little bit." And so it's like, obviously in that moment, it's like so much concern for what's going on in the bathroom on Daniel Baldwin's part. And then they cut to Daniel Baldwin. He's just asleep. He's asleep like in a chair, and he's so not convincing as asleep. Like, I never for 1 second believe that he's asleep in that scene. He is so bad at just pretending to sleep. It's awful.
I thought the worst part was when he's driving away towards the end, and Cheryl Lee is completing her turn and breaking free to bite him, and he's just like miming driving, just kind of like la da 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 da, driving, hands at 10 and 2. What's this? This woman's turning into a feral demonic monster, 18 inches to my right, and he's totally taken by surprise by this thing he's been watching happen in slow motion for 72 hours.
Yeah, he seems checked out from. I mean, look, I agree that Montoya has like the most narratively interesting stuff to do, although it is a very familiar trope. One guy gets bitten and doesn't want to tell anyone about it. I mean, it's in a lot of vampire movies. But yeah,
but that's better than Jack Crow yells at Priest. For 4 scenes straight.
I don't think it is.
I mean, I'm more interested in Jack Crow yelling at this priest than I am. Yeah. Now, if the other Baldwin had been playing it, maybe. I mean, it is as I say, more active. Maybe I'll believe that Alec Baldwin is kind of falling in love or something with Cheryl Lee, or has any reason at all not to just kill her. I don't with Mr. Daniel Baldwin, I'm afraid. So
I do like.
Honestly, this role largely feels like a missed opportunity for me.
I'll say that I do like Daniel, like when he first gets bitten in the motel room and he's, very upset and he goes, "Look what you did."
Yeah. Bite me. Yeah. It's
I mean, that was kind of good. And I do like towards the end after he's, after that moment you describe where he's, bit on the neck by Cheryl Lee, and he fires the gun and then uses the gun to corduroys the wound. I thought that he was convincing there.
He's got 2 cauterize his own wounds with a gun scenes in this movie, right?
Yeah.
2. That's pretty cool. That's
the first one is the first one with a gun, or is it just with like a lighter or something?
Oh, I think it was just a lighter.
It's one's with a gun, one's with a lighter. They're both good. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
a lot of
corduroying.
I think. Yes, a lot of self-cauterization.
Yeah.
It's better that they didn't step on the later machine gun one by doing it with a gun the first time, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, the gun one's better.
Yeah.
They're both real good.
Yeah, no, they're both good, but the gun one's better.
We've been going for half an hour here. We haven't really mentioned the villain of this piece, the headmaster vampire.
You know what? This movie called Vampires kind of doesn't give a shit about it at all.
Vampires.
Yeah. The villain sucks. The villain is an absolute suck villain. Like this guy blows. I'm sorry, Thomas Ian Griffith.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's disappointing to me because I really like Thomas Ian Griffith. He has been the MVP of the last 2 seasons of Cobra Kai. He has been awesome on Cobra Kai. And I mean, I liked some of the movies that he did before Vampires, but yeah, they just don't give him anything really to do after the whole slaying of the team. There's just nothing for him to do at all. And it's pretty bad. It's not a good performance, and it's just not the whole role is just not. I don't know what they're trying to go for, but no, there's nothing scary about it, and there's nothing interesting about the Valak. They have a whole bunch of shoehorned in exposition about his past, but nobody cares about any of that.
Well, there's no personality to him, and that's part of what this movie is doing, which is like one of the, I guess, things I respect about it a little bit, is in theory at least, is it's trying to take all the romance away from vampires. It's trying to completely be the anti-Anne Rice. There's nothing sexy about them. There's nothing supernatural about them. Even like they have super strength and whatever, but it's not like religious based. The Catholic Church is against them, but they're not. They don't have the power of Satan flowing through their veins. And they can burst into flame, but when you stab them with a stake, it's just really messy and bloody, and that's all kind of cool. It's demystifying them in a way, making them just feral and animalistic. But the problem, I think, with this Valak as a villain is it takes away all these trappings of vampire lore that's built up. It doesn't really replace them with anything.
No,
there's nothing. I could tell you nothing about Valak except maybe plot details. Like
There's only like 2 of those though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they're pretty standard. He's looking for the Berzier cross. It'll allow vampires to walk in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's what all evil vampires want in these movies. Certainly, what they wanted in Blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his
But
look is so boring.
Yes, it's very weak.
This is like you have made no choices for Valak. You look, and he looks honestly almost a little like they just did like a half-assed.
He still kind of looks
vampire
like the Eurotrash version.
Like the shoulder-length hair, the model. He looks like a model.
I think Carpenter must really like this look because it's like the villain in Ghosts of Mars has almost kind of like the same look. it's like the same thing, and it's bad there too.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, like, yeah, he wants to walk in the daylight like the monsters in Blade, but at least in Blade, like, I had an idea that Deacon Frost wanted to then rule the world or something. Like, I didn't have a sense of like what Valak planned to do once he could go out in the morning.
If you can't even Deacon Frost is a pretty good vampire action movie villain.
Oh yeah,
yes. I mean, I'm not even blaming vampires for not hitting that level. But they made no choices, nothing at all. Yeah. Like it's a shame. And it seems like that would be the reason to make a movie called Vampires. Would be if you had any sort of exciting take on those, and they don't here. They have none. They have exciting takes on vampire hunters, and kind of starts and ends there.
Yeah, there's just no effort with Valak at all. I mean, they don't really give him any scenes to really like. Just you always want to have the scenes that kind of build up the villain, and yeah, it's great, the whole massacre of the team, and that's fantastic. But other than that, there's really not one interesting scene with Valak at all.
Yeah, he's got 10 lines, maybe. Half
Probably,
of those are Jack Crow.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's too bad because I really like Thomas Ian Griffith, and I wish I could celebrate him in this movie, but I cannot.
I mean, Maximilian Schell, 5 minutes in this movie, and he pops way more.
He leaves more of an impression as a villain because he has some personality and a motivation that makes sense. And maybe we've seen versions of that before, but we didn't necessarily see it coming here.
He just wants to live forever.
Yeah, but coming from a cardinal in the Catholic Church, he really goes.
He's a fun actor.
He makes a full 180, in a way that's kind of delightful.
Yeah, he makes a meal of it. I mean, yeah, he's having a good time.
He's good. I'd have rather there have been more of him and less of Valak. Valak should have just been like kind of the right-hand man, the muscle for Maximilian Schell. That's what they should have done.
But I think there's something there. Like the big escalation in the end of this movie is that he's got this crew of 7 other masters. These are not your normal goons. These are other master vampires that are extra bad, and nasty, or whatever.
Yeah. One of whom is Chad Stahelski.
I read that, and then I couldn't tell you which one. None of them leave an impression. They should have personality. They should have like full blown like American Gladiators caricatures of like one of them is the rock star one, and one of them's a cowboy. They should be village people. I don't care. Like whatever. Just they should have gimmicks or something. One should should wave a chainsaw around.
You're right. This movie needs to lean into shit like that. Yeah, yes. This is B movie. This should be like The Running Man. It should have those kind of guys. As your level bosses or whatever, and you should have more of the hunters left over to fight with them. Actually, like if the second act of this was less road trip and more like silly lore and action scenes, I think it would be sort of a B movie classic in a lot of ways. It hits a lot of the limited marks of what I want from what I guess you'd call like a direct to video vampire action movie, like that sort of thing. This could be like a great one, and it
is up front,
but it's just can't sustain that.
It's surprising that there haven't really been more of these kind of like neo-Western vampire movies. It's like,
which is great.
Basically Near Dark, From Dusk Till Dawn, From Dusk Till Dawn 2, From Dusk Till Dawn 3, and Vampires, and that's like it. There's really, I think it's a really cool kind of like, that's one thing I like about the movie is just the world that it kind of inhabits, and I'm surprised that there really hasn't been more.
You're forgetting about Vampires: Los Muertos.
Yeah, there is a franchise here.
Oh no, I'm not forgetting about Vampire Los Muertos.
I do want more. I mean, I feel like they're still like wringing blood from Dusk Till Dawn Stone. Is the television show on the El Rey network still running? Probably.
I don't
not.
even think
Probably
there's
not
an
at
El
this
Rey network anymore. I think that's gone.
point.
I'm pretty sure. I think that's gone.
But I mean, this was like, this is sort of Tarantino mid '90s adjacent.
Yeah.
A lot of it feels like a lot of Dimension films coming out around this time, sort of in this mode. Even stuff without vampires kind of had like 3,000 Miles to Graceland. We were doing stuff like this more, and so it's kind of encouraging, honestly, to see Carpenter doing his thing with what is ostensibly sort of a modern movement in cinema. After kind of striking out for the last few at-bats, like we just talked about Escape from LA, which, I have more affection for now than I did, but it's hard not to say that movie feels like, a guy past his time made it, not really at home in 90s cinema with the way he uses CGI. In this movie, he kind of takes his vibe and applies it to what is popular at the time, and it more or less works. Obviously, there's things that are wrong-headed here. There's mistakes. There's things that technically make it kind of worse, but are actually secret benefits, like that it stars James Woods. Things like that.
And Daniel Baldwin.
I've seen this movie. It occurs to me when I watched it the other day, like 12 times probably. This is somehow one of my more watched Carpenter films. I don't know why.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened exactly.
I think I've seen it maybe 3 times, and I think that's a lot.
I got fired from a movie theater for sneaking people into this. That's the thing I did. Yeah, because I was in a fraternity, the same one that James Woods was. Not at the same time, but he was a frat brother of Theta Delta Chi, and so I organized an event to sneak my entire fraternity into a screening of Vampires at the theater I worked in, and was summarily fired.
Wow.
So I have some history with it. Yeah. I also left the fraternity shortly after, so don't worry.
Did you ever get to meet James Woods?
No, not at all.
No?
Not even remotely. Yeah, and you know what? I'm not even 100% sure he was a member. It's something somebody said at the time, and I thought, well, that's a fun excuse to try to break 25 guys into vampires at the movie theater.
There was a James Woods that graduated Theta Delta Chi in the class of 74. But
at some point or another, I'm sure there must have been.
Do you believe his whole thing about possibly preventing 9/11?
Oh, is he one of those?
No. His whole thing was that a month before 9/11, he was on a plane with he noticed individuals on the plane who were acting suspicious, and he went to the co-pilot on the plane and told the co-pilot, said, hey, these guys are acting very suspicious on this flight, and the co-pilot basically said, okay, well, we'll let the FAA know, and that was all they did. And then 9/11 happened, and Woods again basically said what he saw, and supposedly when the authorities came to him and gave him photos, he identified 2 of the hijackers from that flight.
One of them was a picture of Thomas Ian Griffith there.
Okay, James. Okay.
Well, now that would have been a story.
I don't know, of all the celebrities, look, I buy about 25% of that story. I buy that James Woods saw an Arab guy on a plane once.
And he had some thoughts about it, I'm sure.
But
yeah,
look, I didn't want to go down the James Woods rabbit hole anyway.
He's good though. This is it's the weird thing. He's a good presence on screen.
He's one of the great actors of his era. I mean, I'm sorry, he really is. It's just so watchable and so interesting.
It's just a damn shame he's bogged down with Tim Guinea this whole movie.
Well, this is not his finest hour, he's still having fun though. He's still having a fucking blast as this ridiculous abusive character that is the hero of the film. It's it seems like a vanity project to some extent. Like, yeah, I'll do the movie. I got to be the hero, though. You know, like I feel like he
Well, I
probably
think
wanted
it's
to get the opportunity for that.
it's I think it's kind of literally a vanity project because this is the last movie where he was still dyeing his hair.
Oh,
Vampires.
God.
This is the last one.
Mhm.
After Vampires, the next movie he's in is The General's Daughter, and he's all silver in The
Oh
General's
yeah,
Daughter, and that's how he
he's
is
his age
going
there.
forward.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he looks ridiculous in this film. He looks so fucking silly.
But that works for the character
this
for
cool
me.
guy get the outfit that he's got.
I totally buy that Jack Crow
It
it
does,
does. It's
yes.
great.
It does.
shoe polishes his hair.
Dyes his hair. Yeah, it totally makes sense. He looks. His face is really like starting to age at this point too. Like beyond his look, he's clearly going for late 30s action star here, but the face is drawn and pulled. He looks like a Disney villain. He looks like a caricature.
But that all works to me, and like
he does seem trim. I'll give him that. He's
he does.
fit.
I do want to make sure you guys understand. My criticism of this movie is not, and the Jack Crow character is not that he's too big of an asshole or he should be nicer or younger or better looking or something. It's just that he gets stranded spending half this movie just abusing this priest. And I'm not even saying he needs to be nice for the priest. I think that could work if you had a better actor in the priest role, serving something back from that dweeb point of view.
Give me this movie. If you give me this movie starring James Woods, Alec Baldwin, and Steve Buscemi, is it one of the best Carpenter films? I mean,
yes,
might be.
Wait, is Buscemi as Valak or is he the Padre?
No. He's the Padre.
No, he's the Padre. Valak would be Dolph Lundgren, who turned it down.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hey, why not? Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, Buscemi was right there in Escape from L.A. It was just a second ago. He was right there. So it wouldn't have been impossible, And yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a much better movie.
I think that's what you needed, man. I think you needed this to be a little bit classier and then just drag it through the B-movie mud where it already, was always going to be.
Yeah, I don't really want it to be classier. I don't really want it to be classier. Just get better actors, but still be very low class and very misogynistic. Just keep all that, but just with better actors.
Yeah, the misogyny in this is really like it's bone deep. Can't really do without that. And
well, hold up. This movie basically. Okay, unless I'm missing someone, with the exception of one character, every woman is either a vampire or a hooker. The only exception is there's like the cleaning lady in the church that Valak kills. That's the only woman that I can think of who's not either a vampire, a hooker, or both.
Like speaking parts, just appearing on screen.
I'm just parts, This is the only movie I know of where in the credits they just say hookers and then they give the names of all the actresses. They don't even go hooker number 1, hooker number 2, hooker number 3. It just says hookers. Here's 9 actresses' names.
Most of whom probably stunt women.
Well, I that's not true because I know you've seen the film Dirty Work.
I don't know if they're in a separate box at the end of the credits. They possibly, but I don't know. It's either
there's a whole gang
Dirty
of them.
Work or vampires. Yes, in trunks.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking about Cheryl Lee, or John was about to say something about Cheryl Lee, who's very incredibly typecast in this movie, like for the mid '90s.
It's just the actress played Laura Palmer, and this just like, could you just get the shit kicked out of you? Just like everyone slaps you and says and just calls you a bitch, and you just sort of writhe, and your shirt falls off.
Where do I sign?
You're going to be immediately assaulted and spend most of your screen time bound naked to a bed or duct taped to a car and sort of possessed by a feral demonic presence. So you'll be sort of writhing and snarling. And
a lot of getting slapped so people get your attention.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yes,
that too.
There's a shot.
Yeah, it's Laura Palmer writ large.
There's a shot of the three of them walking down the highway after their car breaks down.
Yeah.
So they're just walking down the highway, Woods, Baldwin, and Cheryl Lee, and it's in slow motion with the badass score going. And it's just a slow motion shot of James Woods just like walking up and pushing her to the ground And she just sort of stumbles and falls on her face in slow motion. And they keep walking. And I guess Baldwin kind of picks her up to sort of indicate their arc and what's going to happen there. But really, the main focus is just James Woods throwing her to the ground in slow motion for no reason. And then that's all that happens to her for the next hour of the movie, basically. It's versions of that. Even Baldwin, who is supposed to be the one who likes her, slaps her around a bunch and calls her a bitch all the time. Thankless work.
The film
you know what?
scores very low on the Bechdel test. Very low.
It's not possible to get any lower. You would score higher if you had 0 women. The movie Moon, where it's just Sam Rockwell and a sex offender's voice, probably scores higher on the Bechdel test.
But I don't know. I mean, that's part of its identity, really, is this sort of bone deep nihilism and misogyny. It's just sort of, I wouldn't say, I like I said, it is a little subversive, just in that it's just so aggressively in your face and confrontational in the way it's presenting them as assholes. But it's also like, I don't know, is it kind of matching the sort of, post Tarantino ripoffs of the time? The other thing I was talking about earlier is it kind of trying to be the man show on Comedy Central a little bit here, or South Park, or just bitches. It's got that a little bit too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just product of its time. Silliness.
I mean, this is.
I think James Woods definitely thinks that's what he's doing.
Yeah, he thinks it's great fun for sure.
Because I don't know exactly what Carpenter's age was. I mean, I'm thinking maybe he's maybe mid-50s when he made this. And I just think this is kind of probably something like that. And so I just think this is an interesting look into what Carpenter thought was cool at that age. And that's what's on the screen. And even though I don't necessarily find all of it cool, I find enough of it cool to where I enjoy it.
Yeah, this is not satirical, I don't think, in the way a lot of these movies are. This is not like, this is not a send-up of toxic masculinity. Nothing like that going on here. This is just, they're such badasses that they slap prostitutes. That's sort of what we're talking about in Vampires.
It's not even really meta the way that Tarantino ripoffs are. It's not like self-aware about these characters, like modeling.
But thank God for that.
Pure B movie, really. I mean, in the ways it's good and the ways it's bad, probably. Valak being shitty. That's kind of B movie.
This is kind of an interesting one to watch. If you can anybody can go on YouTube and watch the Siskel and Ebert review of it. It's an interesting one.
Oh,
because it's because Siskel, he loves it. He loves this movie. He thinks it's one of the things that he loves about it is that, and this is his language, there's no juveniles in it. I guess he was real tired of horror movies with juveniles. I think because this was the era of all the Scream ripoffs. So
this was his thing.
Sick.
I remember this. Yeah,
he was sick of juveniles.
That's true, though.
Movies. Yeah,
so no one under 40 in this
juveniles
film.
is such a funny way of putting it. But
that's exactly how he says it.
That's weird.
And then like the sad part is that this is like getting pretty close to Siskel's actual end, because he's struggling when he's doing the review on this one, and I mean he's enthused about the movie, and so that's good to see. But
kind of like me today.
It's a little bit, a little bit. You kind of have the Siskel, 4 months away from bad times.
Good stuff.
But
this one's softening me up, and pretty soon the ward is going to finish me off.
Oh my God!
Oh, don't sell Ghosts of Mars short, man. That's coming.
No, you can sell it short.
We have to do. That's our next one, man, and that's my last hope for something good coming out of Carpenter. Really, is that I don't know. I've heard nothing good about that one either, but I feel like the premise sounds like it's got to be kind of fun, right?
Well, it's about ghosts on Mars, one supposes. So, there's that. Fun cast. You know what? We'll have a whole very short episode to talk about that. I'm sure. I don't know, man. I think we're about done with good Carpenter right now. Sort of decisively. Maybe there'll be things to look at and point at and be like, Well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Huh? Wouldn't have thought you'd do that with a Ghost of Mars movie. But yeah, this is the end, friends. Man, this is the this is the last one.
This is really the last one that I'll go to bat for. Mainly because there's only one after it that I've seen and I didn't like it. But yeah, that's this one. I'm fine going to bat for this one. It certainly could have been better. There's a lot of choices. I wish they would have gone in a different direction, but to me, I just as long as I get to see James Woods tell Valak, "Untie me, you prick." That's all I really need, and then you give me enough dialogue like that, and I'm good. I'm good. That's fine for me.
I mean, you get James Woods barking at people.
Yeah, his main thing is just like, I bet you have an erection now, don't you? There's just versions of that, no matter whether he's in charge or whether he's tied to a stake. That's his go-to.
Yeah. And whether he's trying to insult his enemy or trying to bond with a new friend, it's just taunting them about their erections.
I mean, when he's on the cross and the Padre's on the roof and he's like, "Padre, hurry up! My nuts are on fire here."
Yeah,
it's just
he's really funny in this. I swear,
I love it. It's hilarious.
I love that. That's it, Padre. Fuck with him. That's funny. That's great.
Pole-spoken fashion victim.
I think maybe our difference here, Al, honestly, is just how we responded to the Woods performance. Like that is kind of the number one sell for me. Like without that, this movie is offering very little, honestly, and with it has a personality. And if that one didn't work for me,
well, I mean,
I'd need to love that Daniel Baldwin performance to come back around. I really would have to love it.
It seems like the Daniel Baldwin performance is where our bigger difference lies, because I kind of like that one, but also like. It's not a fair exchange because the movie chooses Woods over Baldwin. So if you only like one, you guys got the long end of the stick. I got the short one. It happens.
Yeah. So I don't know. In the scheme of things, I think this is some mid-tier, stuff. It's kind of fun. But I don't know. It doesn't necessarily feel like a Carpenter film aside from in isolated ways, but that's kind of cool actually in this case.
I think it really feels like one. I mean, I think between the
score,
music
obviously.
And the gore, and I love the way the movie looks. I just think it has a really interesting look to it. Just how it's filmed is unique. I can't really think of a lot of movies that just look like this.
It's not terrible. It's got pieces. I think its biggest problem is that it teases. It becomes less than the sum of its parts, and because it teases a better movie than it ends up delivering, and that's sort of hard to recover from. Even if the movie it does deliver is not as bad as a lot of the ones we've covered already. It's a fine B movie thing, like you said.
I think you're right.
Kind of trashy
like
action horror thing.
If it lived up to the first 30 minutes, then I think we'd really have something. And if you had some slightly better actors in some of the roles, and I feel like the things that would improve this are fairly obvious. It's just kind of do you respond to the things that it does do, and varying degrees of
I would sum it up as could have been better, still good. That's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. And I'll probably see it again.
Chris, thanks for being our resident optimist.
Hey, I mean, if you had me on for Escape from LA, I would have dumped on that one. But it's this one I enjoy. It's not obviously not up there with his the big guns of the 80s, but of his run during the 90s, I'll take this one over all the rest.
All right, well, it's onward and downward for us.
Thank you for listening to this. And we'll be back with the final 2 episodes of Frameworks John Carpenter's the podcast very soon. I think we're sprinting now, right? I think we're just sprinting to get through.
Yeah.
The end of this. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to drag this out. We want to remember Carpenter as he was, not as the 90s.
All right.
Not as he is. Whatever.
Do we got to do a?
I kind of love him. I kind of love him now. Just checked out of everything.
Oh, I know. I do too. I yes, just a guy getting high watching Laker games.
You saw he has a new project, right? Yeah. An incredibly weird looking thing that he's.
I did hear about that
this October. Yeah. You know what this is, Al? It's a streaming show that is basically a mix of like true crime reenactments and well, I'm not sure what the hell it is, but it is it's called like John Carpenter's Suburban Murders or something like that. I forget what it actually is called, but it's very odd. It's
John Carpenter's Suburban Screams.
That's what it is. Yeah.
All I know is that at some point I saw where it was described as unscripted, and that's where I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be very good.
It definitely doesn't look like it's a big comeback that we might have hoped for. It looks like he's just doing some shit for money, maybe to amuse himself or who knows why. But reenactments of true crimes. That's what he's doing now.
John Carpenter does unsolved mysteries in 2023 in the improvisational style of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Fucking sign me up, man. I have no idea what to be. There's no way it can go right.
All right, so that's another episode we're doing on Carpenter. The Suburban Screams coming. You heard it here. We promise it's going to happen. All right. Thank you for listening.
I'll promise anything. I'll be dead in hours.